This is the Business Storytelling Show, a top global marketing podcast listened to in more than 100 countries, live streamed on social media, and broadcast on DBTV. Christoph Trapp chats with industry leaders to help your company tell better business stories. Here's today's episode.
Hey, business storytellers, how's everyone doing? Hey, today we want to talk about content marketing strategy, and this is an exciting topic, as you might know. I like to talk about that quite often. Content marketing strategy, a new book, Robert Rose, just came out in September, I think, so not too long ago. And I'm interested to find out what's new in content marketing strategy and why is that still a topic to talk about. I certainly see a trend where more and more people want to do content marketing, and that's great if you do it well. Otherwise, we just get more and more marketing gobbledygook. So interested to hear Robert's perspective on that. Before we get there, just a quick reminder, we are live on Amazon. Everything you see around me, except maybe that Washington Redskins helmet, because the Redskins logo can no longer be sold, but everything else you can buy. The plant, the sound panels, even this chair. Once you use a gaming chair, you will not go back. Trust me, I'm not a gamer. I'm not a middle-aged gamer. I just like to be comfortable. Hate me for it if you have to. So let's get Robert on the stage here. I know he's comfortable on the stage. I've met him first at Content Marketing World many, many years ago in Cleveland. And you know how I could find him? Easy. Find the key, the main stage, and he's probably up there giving another fantastic speech. So let's get him on the show, find out what's the new book about and why content marketing strategy is still useful. Robert, welcome.
How are you? Good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. It's good. It's been too long, and thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, really appreciate it. And it's always nice to see, new and useful and helpful books coming out. And certainly you've been a thought leader in the field for quite a while. And, I'm not kidding. Every time I look for you, I just got to find the main stage. There you are, dazzling the crowds. So tell us, what's the point behind this book? Why now? And why is content marketing strategy still an important thing?
Sure. Yeah. Does the world need another book on content marketing strategy? The answer to that is probably no. But one of the things that they tell you as an author is that if you have an idea for a book, start with a big question, not with a big answer. And one of the questions that I wanted to really sort of ask myself was, there was tons of books, even those that I had written before, about the first two of those words, content and or marketing, right? So how to write better content, how to create better content, what does better content look like? What does marketing look like? How to measure, all those kinds of things. But what there really wasn't a book about was content marketing strategy. And what do I mean by that? So I meant by that, I lean very heavily into my Michael Porter, sort of the famous Harvard business professor, who talked about competitive strategy as being, how do we fit together all of the activities that we are doing as a business to create competitive advantage? So it's those activities that are the unit of competitive advantage. And what he said, and I absolutely believe, is that it's doing those activities differently. In other words, doing different activities than your competitor, or doing the same activities in a completely different way. That's what creates competitive advantage. And that is the idea of a strategy. And so I took that idea to say, okay, in content marketing, what are the successful companies, from small independent businesses, from solopreneurs, all the way up to huge global enterprises? What are the activities that are common to the successful ones? How are their team charters? What do their operations look like? What is their operating model? How are they measuring? What do those activities look like that are different from everybody else that's performing them? And how do they all fit together? And that's really the thrust of the entire book, is putting all those things together into one sort of, very geeky, I will warn you, very geeky sort of book.
I mean, geeky is okay, but I mean, there's so many avenues we can go down here. Of course, we don't have hours to talk to each other, even though that would be fun. When you were talking about content marketing strategy, I was thinking about this person one time who came up with this really great strategy. It was not me, and we're not going to say who it was. I don't think you know that person, but
Okay.
they said, I said, that's a really good strategy. It's really good. But do you think they can actually do this part and this part and this part? And they said, well, we're just doing the strategy. It's like writing a playbook for an NFL
Right.
team and saying, just throw a 100-yard pass on every play, but
That's
nobody in the
right.
world can even throw it that far. So, like, duh, right? So
Yeah.
where do you figure out what is actually reality, what's a good strategy, and how do you determine what the right steps are? What did you find in looking at all these successful companies?
With the thing that I think is common to all of them, and so one of the things that I looked at, by the way, was the difference and the commonalities between those that I would call conscious content marketers. Those are the companies that we hear so much about, the Red Bulls of the world and Cleveland Clinics and Lego to some extent, where they've purposely built an operation of content as a strategic function in their business, the operation literally of content as a strategic function in order to create a differentiating marketing strategy. But if you ask them, they would go, No, we've seen the events, we've read the books, we know, we've designed this purposely to be this way." Then there are the unconscious ones, right? So Amazon and their acquisition of and creation of Prime Video, and Microsoft, their acquisition of GitHub and LinkedIn, and giant companies, JP Morgan Chase, these big companies that if you ask, and I did ask them, I said, tell me about your content marketing approach. They would go, we don't even know what that is. All they know is that reaching consumers with media, valuable media, is a differentiating way for them to create reach and value into the audiences that ultimately buy their products and services. They just looked at it as a smart business decision. And so those unconscious content marketers and conscious, one of the things that I wanted to look at was, what do they have in common? And the one thing that they have in common that we can certainly dig into is they're not marketing themselves like a media company. They're operating like a media company. The workflow, the teams, the skills, the technologies, their management of content, how they operate like a media company are the differentiating aspects of what it is they do, from either acquiring a media company that is already operating or building one from scratch. So it's not just about the classic creation of content for marketing purposes, for campaigns and for ads and for brand. It's about operating like a media company, which is much different than actually operating like a classic marketing organization. That's the key commonality between those two, and really where I see the true foundation of differentiation.
It's interesting when you just mentioned that. I was thinking, I'm like, okay, do I operate like a media company? I kind of do, right?
Yeah.
Because think about, you came on the show, right? And like you totally can talk about what you want to talk about to an extent, right? But when you came on, I said, Robert, hey, nice to see you. Here are the rules of how we do things, right? Like we have
Yep.
24 minutes, which is totally what a TV producer would tell you. We have 90 seconds. This is how it goes. At 24 minutes, we're done. If you don't wrap it up, I know you will, but if you don't wrap it up, the outro will run. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like that
exactly.
is literally what a TV producer would tell people when they come on air. But how far do content teams take the media operational mindset? Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think about when I used to be in a B2C journalism position, right? I had editorial control, right? I mean, it was like, I write about what I write about. Nobody approves it. This is how I'm going to write about it. Yes, I want it to be accurate, but this is how it goes. So, but there is a line if you do content at a corporate level, right? I mean, you have hopefully not approval hell, but certainly there's more approvals by sources than there would be in a media company.
Well, it's an integration, right? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
key, is that it's an integration of everything that we would look at as a media operation and integrating that media operation into the activities of marketing. So it is important for those, for example, that have the skills and the assignment that are working, as you point out, to either create brand journalism or to create the great valuable content as part of their remit of their team's job. It's also incumbent upon them to understand how that fits into the broader activities of marketing. That's why it's called content marketing and not, I mean, we have a saying here in Hollywood, right? It's not show friends, it's show business, right? It is about making money. It is ultimately a business model. The same is true in content marketing. It is not content friends or content wonderful journalism. It is content marketing. It is, how does it integrate into the overall marketing strategy of our organization? So understanding that is really important. Then whether you sort of create those different operating models to be, creating all of that wonderful content without, approvals or, in a sort of semi-autonomous way, well, that's completely up to the business decisions that are made at the business level. But what we find is that most of them are creating, are doing both. They're creating classic ad campaigns and classic, marketing materials and brochures and websites over here. And they're creating classic, wonderful content marketing platforms, blogs, resource centers, digital magazines, podcasts, all those kinds of things over here. But they're intertwined, right? They're intertwined. They're actually acting as a unique set of differentiated activities that creates an overall marketing strategy.
You mentioned blogs, and when Jeff Boulas was on the show, we kind of were reminiscing a little bit about how things started back in the day. Blogging was kind of the main thing, and I still see a lot of results from blogging. Sure, it's changed quite a bit, right? I mean, I have to try to rank for different things. I'm probably not going to rank for content marketing, for example,
Right.
but I can rank for other things. So it's a little bit different. But you mentioned blogging, so is blogging still a valid content marketing strategy, or what should the centerpiece be in your opinion?
Well, I think, when we start talking about blogs, we get wrapped up into semantics, right? I mean, which is, what is a blog, right? So in so many cases, what we find is that the content platform that we're really talking about is probably better described as a digital publication, a digital magazine, or a digital newsroom, or something like that. Blog, the classic definition of posts that are presented in reverse chronological order. Maybe, the idea of blogging was always around the idea of, a personal journal of sorts that is, represented as a timeline more than anything else. So what we see is the idea of digital publications or digital newsroom or digital magazine, or, something that is a resource center, but is presented by time or by date, which you would look at and go, it's kind of a blog. That distinction is no longer important. What is important is to what we find is that you are creating a center of influence of content that is an experience. It's a digital experience, independent of how it's constructed technically, right? If it's constructed technically as a blog, fine. If it's constructed technically as a magazine that's by topic, fine. Or as a newspaper, or as a video center, or as a courseware, whatever those things are, that's the key is that you're creating a compelling and engaging content experience. And sometimes it's a blog, right? That's the kind. So I would say in that sense, blogging is certainly not dead, but it's evolved, it's changed. It is now merged into a broader sense of what those digital experiences really are.
And the other thing too is the way I blog today, it's very different from how I blogged 10 years ago. Like for example, we're podcasting right now, or we're live streaming officially. We're turning that into a podcast.
Yeah.
Then we're taking this content and we're turning it into a blog post. We're going to take some of the content to put in another blog post. I'll get to that section in a minute. So it's very different, right? Back in the day, I would just sit down and go, here's what I have to say about it. Maybe I quote somebody, but again, you got me going on the media operations thing. Freddie on Amazon, thanks for commenting. I think he is agreeing with us. He didn't respond to my response yet, but don't promote or else I won't buy it. That is very true. And I think that's very hard sometimes for companies just to push. But if you're top of the funnel or informational searcher, like Andy Cristodino would say, you're not ready to buy. You're just ready to consume and ready to take a look. I know part of your subtitle is harness the power of your brand's voice. Give me your opinion on how do brands even come up with their voice? Because I still think when Bruce Rutan was on the show talking about the same topic, he was talking, we were talking about some people, they want their brand to sound like this. Our brand needs to be witty or whatever.
Right.
But the brand isn't witty at all. Like the topic isn't witty. There's nothing witty. Maybe that's not the right example, but you know what I mean? Like, how do you come up with your brand voice and make sure it's a good voice, but it's also authentic?
I think there's two things to keep into consideration here. The first is that, as you very appropriately pointed out, saying it is one thing and doing it is another, right? Actually saying that we're witty or saying that we're doing things, well, yeah, you gotta kind of follow it up with actually doing the thing that you say that you are. And so the other thing that I would point to, however, which makes it easier is, and this is something I speak to in the book, which is One of the things that many companies have done is to come up with their brand architecture, right? So their brand house, their messaging architecture, their value propositions, their benefit statements, and they've codified that generally pretty well. But it's basically how we talk about us, right? How we talk about our brand, how we talk about our product, how we talk about our service, and all the adjectives and the messaging architectures and that we do about us. That doesn't help on a content marketing idea. That doesn't really help. So what we want is what we call a point of view architecture, which is other than a brand, there are things that the business believes about the world. In other words, we believe this about the world, or this is the reason that our brand exists in the world, or we believe that change is about this, or whatever the thing is that the business believes. And there may be 1 or 5 or 10 of those things. Those are the things that a content marketing organization or a content marketing team can get their arms around. So in much the same way that we would create a brand level architecture of value propositions and messaging statements, et cetera, it's about understanding the things, the key points of view that the business has about the world. What do we believe about the world? And then creating a messaging architecture around that, because that's where we can create consistency in our thought leadership across our different channels, across our social media, across all the different places that we're putting content, so that we're constantly reinforcing those beliefs about the world.
When you talk about point of view, I think that's a big differentiator, right? I mean, if I come on here and I just sit here and I go, "Oh, I agree," blah blah blah, and I don't have a point of view on anything.
Mm.
At some point, I know people don't come here because of me; they come here because of you and to listen to your stuff. But if it's not interesting, if I don't have an opinion on anything, at some point people will tune out, right? So
Well,
how,
sure. If all you do is talk about yourself, people are going to tune out, right? I
right?
mean, that's the key. Yeah.
So how do you get brands to actually develop a point of view and a good point of view, and not just? I mean, we had somebody on the show for Engage AI, Robert, and basically this is a tool where you comment on LinkedIn posts, because
Mm.
what they notice, and you've probably seen this, people comment and they just say, "Robert, I agree.
Right.
Great post, fantastic," and
Sure.
it's like,
Yep.
that's not a point of view. That's garbage,
Yeah, well, I mean, getting agreement on your point of view is not necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, but one of the things that we tell our clients all the time is that, when you have a very distinct point of view, you have to be willing to be wrong with some people in order to be really right for others. In other words, if your opinion and your point of view from a brand standpoint is so milk toast or down the middle of a particular issue, that there is no other option other than to sort of lukewarmly agree or lukewarmly disagree, well, then you're probably not taking a terribly distinct point of view. But if you're taking a distinct point of view, you have to be willing to really to get into that idea of what it means for people to vehemently disagree. I think this is the big lesson out of the Bud Light challenge with the LGBTQ community, right? Where they've had tons and tons of problem. And basically what they did was they did the worst of both things, right? By being so wishy-washy about the point of view, they basically said they had people neither love them or hate them. They made people not care. That's the worst. That's the worst thing a brand can do, is not have some people love you and some people hate you. It's to have people not care.
creating short video clips from your 30 or 60-minute podcast episode used to take a lot of time, but not anymore. You can now use Opus Clips and create those sound bites in no time. Well, hopefully that sounded better on your end than it sounded on mine. But
It was pretty choppy.
it was kind of choppy. I don't know what's going on here. It sounded great the last time. So, but anyways, hopefully everybody's still with us. We're testing new things. We're always trying new things. I know we're going to be running out of time here before we know it. But you talked about the team setup a little bit here. And of course, in my book, Is Marketing Good Career, I actually talk about the importance of finding the right team, like slash, 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 slash. That's so hard at some point to even do in a job description. But what does a good content marketing team look like? How big does it have to be? What's the smallest realistic example?
Well, I think in many cases it's one person. I mean, it's literally, one of the things that I get commonly asked by a CEO or a CMO, and independent, by the way, of the size of the company, is how do we take the first steps toward a content marketing strategy? And my answer is put somebody in charge of it, right? Make it a thing. Just make it a thing in your business is the first step, because in so many businesses it's like, yeah, it's that thing we do when we don't have anything else to do. And of course, we've always got other things to do. So putting someone or some people in charge of it is the first thing. Then how big the team is really a function of how big the charter is for that team. In other words, what is the purpose and what is the strategy? It's one of the reasons that we have to figure out the activities, because once we, you can, it's sort of a chicken and egg thing, right? You can either figure out all the activities and figure out all of the strategies that we want to put into place for content marketing and then say, great, how many people do we need to do this? Or, which is much more common, you have, here's how many people we have, and here's all the activities we need to have, and where's the gap, right? Do we need to hire people? Do we not need to hire people? Do we need to have people be 80% of their jobs or 20% of their jobs? And so it's really, and I provide a whole framework for this in the book, which is to look at your skills audit against the activities that you and the charter that you want your ultimate team to have. And that will help you define how many people you need. But we see content marketing teams of all sizes, from 1 to 3 to, Cleveland Clinic has more than 100 at this point. So there's no real limit to the size of a team. It's all about the focus of the charter of that team and how many you need to accomplish what you want to accomplish.
And of course, at this point, the Cleveland Clinic has probably seen the value in what that team actually can bring to the
Oh,
business.
of course, 100%. Yeah, they've seen that value. Yeah,
Right? Otherwise, they wouldn't hire all those people.
that's right.
Robert, really great to see you. Really great to connect with you. And last
So
minute here,
wonderful to connect with you.
really appreciate it. Tell us, how do people reach out to you? Like, who do you work with? That kind of thing.
Sure. Thank you so much for that. We have two sets of audiences that we serve. One is our consulting organization, where we work with businesses of all sizes to help them figure out their content operating model and way forward for how they want to create content marketing as a function of business. That's at contentadvisory.net. And then we have our new coaching business, where we actually, work and provide free resources and provide other things associated with the book, and work with practitioners and marketing leaders one-on-one in coaching. That's contentmarketingstrategy.com. And of course, I would love to connect with everybody on LinkedIn as well.
Thanks for tuning in. Please rate and review the Business Storytelling Show on your favorite podcast platform, and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.